Dyer, Jay's analysis. Jay 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 Dyer, Jay's analysis.
All right. How is the sound? Can you guys hear me? I am healthy and fit. That's what happens when you move to a place where the sun actually exists. You get healthy and fit. And when you change your diet off of the nonsense that you're told by the establishment to eat. Now, I changed my diet a long time ago. I mean, in the sense of like going all organic, 2005, 6, 7, somewhere in there. But then, you know, diet is a long process. You learn what you should and shouldn't eat. And then you kind of reform that diet to, you know, whatever your issues happen to be when you get older, when you get into your 30s. So carnivore is working for me. 2 weeks now into carnivore, pretty hardcore. I'm not perfect. I had to have my organic Pringles on the side, but it's doing good. It's really helping with the gut. I think I had a kidney infection too, so it's really helping though. And I got a haircut, so I feel a lot better about live streaming and making videos with my face when I can get some sun and I have a haircut. But yes, finally, I know it's been requested for years actually to do. You know, there's just so many things to do. So I wasn't putting it off. It's just a matter of getting around to it. But I want to talk about upcoming things. So we had some good chats in the Discord the past week, and somebody requested and suggested a book I wasn't aware of, actually, Julian Huxley. We've done Aldous, definitely, important part of the Globalism book series. And we've done other people, but we haven't done Julian, have we? So we had to get Julian Huxley in the mix, and he has a book called On Living in a Revolution. He, of course, coined the term transhumanism. That's why he's relevant. So we are going to do that book next in the Globalist book series. As Ron in the chat is pointing out, tonight's book can easily be found free. You don't have to buy it, but you can find it free. But this is an excellent book because not only has it brought many, many people to orthodoxy, especially out of atheism, nihilism, materialism, scientism, fascism even. There's a whole section on fascism and its pagan roots. It's converted many, many people. And on top of that, I meant to get to it because it's a vindication of what we do at Jay's Analysis. And I didn't even know this, you know, when I was advocating a lot of things I advocated, the transcendental argument, transcendental presuppositional critiques of worldviews. That's how he does his first chapter. The first section is presuppositional critique of scientism. It's a vindication of the approach that we have. Not only that, it vindicates all the other things we talk about. The intrigues, geopolitical type intrigues, all the stuff I've talked about for over a decade, Freemasonry, these kinds of issues. In fact, and I haven't found it yet, but there is a quote, I've seen it, and it might have been an edition of Hiram Monk Damascene in one of the works that Father Rose did over the years, but there's a section where he actually talks about the Illuminists. So if somebody could send me that section of the Illuminists. And again, it might have been Hiram Monk Damascene, but regardless, he talks about the Imperium, he talks about monarchy, talks about all the things that you would hear Jay's Analysis talk about, typical stuff that you would hear from St. John of Kronstadt, right? I mean, when I talk about monarchy, when I talk about all the things I talk about, I'm really just repeating the stuff that you would hear from somebody that everybody venerates, like St. John of Kronstadt. And that's why so many people get mad, is because they know that what I'm talking about is legit. It's not a joke. And he makes this point at the beginning of the book. He makes the point by saying that atheism, Father Rose wrote this is the editor's preface here, the true existential atheism that burns with hatred for God is a spiritual state. It is a real attempt to grapple with the existence of God. Does a God exist or not? Can this be known? Can it be proven? Can it not? His ways are inexplicable even to the most faithful of men, and therefore it becomes, therefore once it has been known to end in a blinding vision of him who it is him who the atheist truly seeks. It is Christ who works in the souls of those grappling with the existence of God. Exactly. Who are the true antichrists, according to Father Rose? The true antichrists are those in the churches with Christ on their lips. So Nietzsche, in calling himself Antichrist, proved, therefore, his intense hunger for Christ. Exactly. And, I was aware of transcendental argumentation and presuppositional critique when I went to university, so I was, thank God, well equipped to grapple with the challenges of atheism, the challenges of nihilism, materialism, the dogma of evolution, socialism, Ayn Randian capitalism. I mean, I was prepared for all of that to critique it. And that was a great blessing. I appreciate that, because I knew a lot of people that, when I was 19, 20, getting really into how to critique worldviews, just going through every one of Bahnsen's lectures and talks. I mean, literally like all of them. I tried to get other people into that, and some people were into it, and they found their experience at college a lot more challenging when they had no interest. And I knew a lot of people who just completely, as soon as they went to college, they became total atheists. They're done. And but I mean, the arguments are terrible. They're not even good arguments from all these goofy atheists and all these dumb professors. But anyway, we're not here to talk that. That's what Father Rose is going to cover. My point is just that, hey, you don't like Jay's analysis? You don't like the stuff I talk about? Go take it up with Father Rose and St. John of Kronstadt, two of the greatest saints of the last few centuries of Orthodoxy. I mean, that's why they know they can't like outright just come after me, is that really I'm just repeating the things that they say. And again, I didn't even know a lot of the critiques and the presuppositional worldview critiques that he did, prior to reading this book, when I was already, really on the path to orthodoxy anyway. So it was all the more a confirmation for me, providentially, not only that you have this phenomenal presuppositional critique in the nihilism book, but the understanding of the need to do philosophical critique. I mean, a lot of the so-called Orthodox, so-called Christians, they don't do that. And so Father Rose is so dangerous because he says that the true antichrists aren't over at atheistlivestream.com. They're the ones that are in the churches. Yeah, I mean, what did we see this last couple of weeks of the abuse scandals of the Roman Catholic priest who was doing you-know-what into the Eucharistic elements and raping kids for 25 years. I'm not talking about the cardinal that's in jail. I'm talking about the priest in Ohio. Yeah. That's where the real wicked people are. And it's not just the Roman Catholic Church. They're in all the churches. And Father Rose is going to point out, too, the uncomfortable truth that the principles of Americanism don't fit with Orthodoxy. They're night and day, obviously. It's really a no-brainer. And really the people who are dishonest with that kind of stuff, they just do a disservice to themselves and their own case. It's not that hard to figure out. But, like I said, we are in the upcoming lectures, right? Next Globalism book will be Julian Huxley's Revolution book. Yes, we will do this. I know. Again, requested for years. It takes a long time to read this book, right? I mean, we're talking 1,000-page book, right? Yep. 1,000, well, you don't count the table of contents. The index, it's over 1,000 pages. So we will do Genesis, Creation, Early Man. I'm not sure what the best way to do that book is. We might have to treat it like Tragedy and Hope, like break it up, maybe chapter by chapter, section by section. I didn't really have a plan for Tragedy and Hope. I just did it as I went through, seeing how much I could do. And it ended up being eight lectures. So I would say this would probably be 5 to 7 lectures. But we are going to do it. Again, I don't know how soon, so stay tuned for that. Other things in the queue, others to come. I did finally get Papalism by Edward Denny. It is one of the premier critiques of papacy, an older book. But again, 720 pages, 730 pages, so that'll take a while. Another one that's good in the same vein, Abgatay, who did convert to Orthodoxy, which I have read, is his papacy book. That one will probably be sooner because I just got the Denny book. But yes, I know we've had all of these requests for papal critiques. When are you going to critique the papacy? When are you going to critique the papacy? At a certain point, yeah, it's worth doing it to address all these issues. But, I mean, you can look at Vatican II and what they taught before Vatican II. It's not that difficult. It doesn't require a THD to figure these things out. It really doesn't. And people will say, oh, what you talk about is too intellectual. It's too. And actually, it's not. It's intellectual when we're addressing specific topics, specific issues. It's intellectual to the degree that is appropriate within our worldview, within our phronema mindset. But it's not intellectual for the sake of being intellectual. Everybody who's read St. Gregory of Palamas, the triads, we did a whole talk on the triads. Where is everybody else doing talks on the triads, by the way? Where is everybody else doing talks on this book, by the way? This is an amazing book. We will get to that. Then we will also eventually do Microcosm and Mediator, the big fat Maximus book by Lars. And I know about Torstein Tollefson. We also need to do Torstein Tollefson's big fat Maximus book as well. I know we're going to get to all these. It's just takes time because, the means and the income for Jay's analysis are not just from movies. They're not just from philosophy and theology. They're not just from the income is multiple streams. So I can't, rely on just talking about globalism books for months. People get tired of it. I get tired of it. I have to switch it up. Can't talk about the same thing over and over and over. Got to be multifaceted. And, we've been silly all week. We did a bunch of silly videos, silly talks. Time to get a little more serious today. To everything turn, there is a season, and a time to... Dude, have you even read Ecclesiastes, bro? There will be some DMT machine elf talk tonight because, actually, Father Rose, in this book, providentially hits on that subject. Doesn't touch directly on the machine elves, but he does talk about W.B. Yeats, who was a big believer in the elves. Not the Keeblers, but the machine elves, dog. And thank you for those super chats. We will be reading those intermittently throughout the talk tonight. Last couple points is after we do some Maximus talks eventually, which I have promised for a long time as well. We will also get the copies while they're still hot. Look like on Amazon, there's only about 11, 9, 8. 3 people on Facebook already said they bought it. Get your dialogue between an Orthodox and a Barlaymite. They're going fast. They're going like hotcakes. There's only a handful left on Amazon. There are 25, I think. Yes, we will do this because this was difficult to find. When I found a lengthy portion of this on a blog 10 years ago, that's all I could find, dude. I could not find this anywhere. Now I don't know when this was printed, but now there is this, which is at least the full version of it. And it was printed, I don't see the date. Sometimes they don't put dates, which is stupid. No, here it is. This was printed when? Where's the date, dude? They don't have a date. That's really weird. Anyway, it just fell from the heavens. Anyway, so this is really the only I'm sure eventually translations are going to come. Don't worry. But as for now, this is all we have. But this is an amazing debate because this is the Roman Catholic philosopher versus St. Gregory Palamas in debate. And it's not that long. It's only, the actual debate is probably only 60, 70 pages. And guess what? You'll notice all the arguments I've ever made, all found in here. Do people think that I just make up what I talk about? Where do they think I get the stuff I talk about? No, I don't make any of it up. It all comes from sources. And then we will also do eventually, because there's so much confusion over this, and all these people on Twitter, all these Roman Catholics thumbing down my video because they're mad. All the trads thumbing down the Palamas talk because they're mad, because they can't refute it, because it's driving them crazy. And they say, you teach yoga. You teach yoga. It's just yoga. No, it's not yoga. Don't have nothing to do with yoga. Did a whole talk against yoga from Father Rose's book, Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future. 17,000 listens on YouTube, 5,000 or so on Spreaker, 20,000 plus listens to a talk against yoga, and dum-dums are saying that I teach yoga. No. So, my endorsed book, great little introduction. Again, great thing about Orthodox books is most of the time they're small, right? You don't have to read a 1,000-page book to understand the basics of what we're talking about here. It's not that difficult. And just because some goofus, who's that goofball? Custinger. Just because Custinger says that St. Gregory Palamas teaches yoga doesn't mean it's true. Custinger is funded by the Oxford Circle, and they teach perennialism. And if you look at the videos of Custinger, he says that he's an historian. He's not Orthodox. He's a clown. That dude's crazy. He still wears boomer 90s era, like, no collar shirts that he buttons. He buttons up to here with no collar. Who does that? Dude, it's not 1993. Anyway. And even in 1993, how dare you do such a fashion faux pas? Freak. That dude's a freak. So, but this is a good little introductory book too. And he talks, there's a chapter on the essence and energy distinction. There's a chapter on hesychasm, hesychia. It's not yoga. It's people, just clowns. When he wrote the triads, if you've read the triads, you know that it's nothing but scripture. Like, he even puts his scriptural proofs. There's far more scripture proofs in the triads than there are even the church fathers. And again, it's also a healthy rebuke, this book here, Nihilism, of the people who say that we're supposed to be anti-intellectual, we're supposed to be fideist, and we don't do apologetics. Yes, we do. This is apologetics. This 800,000-page freaking book is apologetics. And I'm just so sick of this dumb argument. We don't do apologetics. We're so spiritual. We are so spiritual. We don't do any apologetics. Somebody reached out to Destiny, too. If you're familiar with Destiny, they want to see a Destiny debate. I said I was willing to do it. I emailed Destiny. We'll see what he says. I don't know. He did say he was open to it Saturday. I've listened to Destiny on Warski many times. He seems like an intelligent person. So that would be fun. I don't know. We'll see. If he wants to do it, I'm down. And now we will go ahead and get started here, now that we've done our housekeeping, as it's called. I think Father Rose will eventually, he'll be a saint. I think that's pretty clear. I think Seraphim Rose and Father Staniloy will be saints, most likely. I think that's probably true. But of course, again, we always say here, beware of modern 20th century so-called Orthodox. The ones that we say are the safe ground is Seraphim Rose, Father Staniloy, Father Florovsky, Losky. And then there's some other ones, that put out books like Deification in Christ, Panagiotis Nellis, Mansorides. His book on Palamos is good. Yeah. So, but beware of anybody else, because we don't know who's funding these people, where they're coming from. Even Sherrard, we can even see why Sherrard kind of went liberal, with Rockefeller funding for his work. So I imagine they said, "Hey, Phil, we like what you're talking about, but if you're going to continue to write orthodox books, we want more perennialism." And that's unfortunately what Dr. Sherrard did. So, but Greek East, Latin West, still a great book. Let's get into this. But again, every day, it's all day long. Book questions. What do I read? Again, there is a recommended reading at the website. Thank you again, Ron Park, for putting in the links to the book so everybody can read this book free if they want. Thank you for those super chats. Again, we will get to those here in a minute. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Orthodox psychotherapy is certainly good. I was just speaking more, but a lot of people in America, they've never heard of Hierotheos Vlachos. I mean, I would almost say patristic theology is pretty good, except for Romanides makes 3 really stupid statements in that book. So I just can't bring myself to recommend Romanides anymore. I mean, if you're really steeped in like Western stuff, Romanides can be a stepping stone into Orthodoxy, but there's so many problems in the theology of Romanides that we're not going to recommend any Romanides books ultimately, but doesn't matter. You can just go to these other guys that I've mentioned and they're fine. Trying to think of anybody else that stands out. Herman's book, Precious Vessels of the Holy Spirit. That's a good one. Anyway, we need more we need Orthodox biblical commentary. That's what's needed. Because even though typically I understand that's more of a Protestant thing, we're in a Protestant environment here. And that would convert a lot of Protestants if we did that kind of stuff. Maybe one day. We'll see. All right. Nihilism. Today's tech nihilism. Why it's nothing but the logical result of centuries of revolutionary philosophy. That's the thesis of this book. That's what Jay's analysis has been telling you for years. Again, this book is a vindication of Jay's analysis. Revolutionary thought is at root nihilistic, regardless of whether the revolutionaries themselves are aware of this point. This is a very crucial aspect to worldview analysis. Most people aren't aware of the logical implications, the logical flow, the logical result, the logical necessity of their belief systems and where it ought to take them if they were consistent with it. So one of the jobs of an apologist is to help that person flesh out and to see more consistently what their presuppositions are, to be more consistent with them, because every human being is going to have 2 conflicting grounding presuppositional assumptions. They're going to have the assumption of and the desire for God and truth, and they're going to have the assumption and the desire because of the fall for lies and death, corruption. So that's the battle that we all face throughout life. And life is a series of tests, a series of purgations, a series of events brought to us to, what does Paul say? To purify, right? The metallurgical analogy that he uses for, right? Purification, refinement. Right? That's what life does, is it brings us through these phases. For the nihilist, for the revolutionary, we are all raised in an atmosphere, in a milieu of revolution, whether we know it or not. Especially if we grew up in America. America is a nation built on the principles of revolutionary thought. Right now, we all kind of know this, but we don't actually think about the philosophical presuppositions, the assumptions that go into this over time. Again, it's something that we've been talking about here for a long time. This is one of the big things that sets our perspective off against most of the alternative media, because most of the alternative media, again, love most of those people, get along great with most of those people. My two critiques would be most of the alt media types, for all their good information, they don't question Darwin and they don't question the revolutions, right? That's what we do. And that's definitely what makes our position here unique. Now, some do. I'm not saying everybody, but speaking generally here. The question ultimately is there truth? Capital T, truth. In this revolutionary environment, we're surrounded by a multitude of cults, a multitude of gurus, a multitude of schisms of Christianity, so-called. There's also now witches and Wiccans and cultists, wizards and sorcerers. I feel like I'm singing some kind of Disney song or something. Wizards and witches and sorcerers and magi coming for you. Bippity boppity boo. And that's what revolutions have birthed. All of this madness. Now, certainly before, go back to the Roman Empire, the days of the Church Fathers, read Against Heresies by St. Irenaeus, which we did one talk on that so far. There was multitudes of cults in the days of the Roman Empire. And most of those cults were state sanctioned. They were A-okay with the state as long as you paid your religious obeisance to the worship of the image of Caesar. Now, in America, we live in a different kind of imperium. We live in the Enlightenment imperium. But what Father Rose so brilliantly traces out, which I realized in my undergrad and grad school days of studying the French Revolution, is that the underlying impetus, the dark logic, you've heard me talk about that before, right? If we have, again, these two kind of conflicting positions in our worldview, all of us, between good and evil, truth and lies, we're always kind of conflicted, and we're moving in the direction of one or the other, right? It's not all or nothing. I mean, sometimes, it's kind of gray areas. We're kind of in between. And we can make a lot of progress in truth and then decide we're done and move over into error. We can make a lot of progress into error, read the prayer of Manasseh, and then convert. But there is a logic to even the dark side, which is kind of a mystery of iniquity, Paul talks about, where you will live out more and more and more consistently the presuppositions of your worldview, even if it takes generations, right? So it may not be just one generation that goes from, when I was 20, I became a progressive liberal. And then by age 29, I became a Nietzschean Übermensch. And then by age 39, I became a pagan Volk worshiper drinking blood out in the forest with my wolf pack. Ow! And then by age 59, I became a total Luciferian, destroy everything proponent. No, it rarely is this the case in the life of a single person, per se. But it is the case in the logic of that outworking of the dark side, that dark logic, in the last few centuries. That's what's so fascinating about his critique. Again, exact same critique that I've been giving for a long time. Not saying that makes me great or equal to Seraphim Rose or anything like that. Just saying that it's a fact. This is the presuppositional critique. Because in a lot of ways, this is very similar to any traditional Christian critique. There are Catholic critiques. There are even Calvinist critiques. And there are Orthodox critiques very similar to just that basic idea. So there is some similarity there in the way that we would critique the revolutions of the last few centuries. And, you know, it was when I was a 22-year-old trad that I first started looking into more of the anti-revolutionary writers, right? Pro-monarchy, anti-Enlightenment, anti-Freemasonry, and I thought they had great critiques. And there is a lot of truth to be found in those writers. However, you know, when we couple this with, you know, the critique of Roman Catholic dogma, the critique that we have of Calvinism, we find those all very insufficient and unable to work. They're unworkable systems, especially after Vatican II. That's been made manifest to all people now. Pretty obvious. You don't have to go much further than Vatican II to see that the Roman Catholic Church has completely departed from what it taught 100 years ago. Now, relativism and skepticism are the seeming safe zones that we get from the revolution. Okay, and this is very similar to Huxley. If you remember, if you've listened to the Brave New World talks that we did, definitely listen to those, because again, we always point out, even Huxley says in the introduction to Brave New World that Brave New World is the end result of all of the revolutions, from the Enlightenment to the Scientific Revolution, Reformation, all the way up through Bolshevik Revolution, all of them, French Revolution. The end result, the logic, even the people at the head of the revolution can tell you that the logic of the end result, the dark logic of all the revolutions, is the technocracy, the Brave New World. It's the final revolution. And the cronies in his circle who were at the top of the pyramid, Bertrand Russell, Julian, him, they said this is the final revolution. They used the term final revolution. The final revolution is the revolution against man. Man is the last thing to be overcome. That's the same dark logic. It's the exact same pattern. All we're doing here is pattern recognition. It's not that crazy. It's not that hard. If the top globalism writers out there all say what they're going to do, and they all have the same idea and the same pattern, and we point it out, what can you say? So the truth is the question. Ultimate truth, is there such a thing? Well, we've already given that up because, as Father Rose correctly notes, capital T truth ultimately leads us back to revelation, divine revelation. Not natural theology in the Thomistic sense. Divine revelation is the only grounding for absolute truth. And in that regard, in that point, Van Til was correct, right? Because Van Til critiqued Thomas, and he said that was true. That's why he could never be a Thomist. But he didn't have the adequate theology, right, to critique, because he was still stuck in the dialectic of, well, I'm still a radical Augustinian absolute divine simplicity proponent. Right. Hence the insufficiency of Van Til and Bonson for all of their insights. And that's why Father Rose is a superior apologist to both Van Til and Greg Bonson. Even though Bonson was the best debater of the 20th century. There's no doubt about that. Now, the end of the dark logic, again, leads to this question of Luciferianism. That was evident right away in the book. And that's the end result precisely because it's a war on truth. Once you've discarded the idea of divine truth, there are these little cul-de-sacs that you can go into for a time period, and the generations since the revolutions have done this, of trying to find a means to live, find meaning, find happiness, organize society. But every one of these cul-de-sacs is a fraud. It's a deception. They collapse. They don't last. And so in the first section here, our first half of the book, he's going to give you four niches they're the result of dialectics. Hello? Have you heard me talking about dialectics for a long time? Yeah, because the history of Western philosophy is dialectics. And this entire critique is going to be a presuppositional transcendental worldview critique. So, we can't get to truth because we've discarded the idea of absolute truth, truth with a capital T. So therefore, we're going to search for truth in other means. So we're going to go back to the revolutions, the Enlightenment, to the Kant period, to the Descartes period. Right, we're back there in the revolutionary period. And we realize that we can't get truth from revelation because revelation, read the essay that I wrote about from Thomism to Enlightenment deism. You'll understand how that led to that. We can't get truth from revelation. We need to get it from our empirical sense data of the natural world. But when we study the natural world, we see that the natural world has a bunch of predators and prey. And so if I do natural theology on the basis of looking at the natural world, I see that the principles at work there are both death and life. This is the Luciferian logic. This is why Julian Huxley and all those clowns are quite literally Luciferians. And they talk about becoming Luciferian. And they say that evolution is our God. Quite literally. Luciferian evolution is our God. Evolution is Luciferian. Openly. Why can't people see that? It obviously is. And it can't stand for 1 second up against worldview critique. That's why every one of these goofball atheist, naturalist, materialists just collapses when I debate them. It's not because I'm so smart. It's because the arguments are easy and the position is dumb. That's why. And he critiques it within a few pages. It makes it look dumb. But he also mentions the fact that, well, he points out, first of all, that they're all self-contradictory. Yes, that's called a presuppositional transcendental worldview critique. We have discussion in an earlier chapter, the universality of faith. All human activity is based on faith. Yes, exactly. Not classical foundationalism. How many times have I critiqued Thomism and classical foundationalism? Because that doesn't work. Because every position ultimately relies upon authority claims. Even Scientism. It's based on the assumption of the reliability of sense perception, of the reliability of the past, the reliability of the data over time, blah, 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 objects over time, identity over time, that you exist, that you have a self. All that's presupposed in science, but they just say, well, don't talk about that. Don't ask those questions. Those are metaphysical questions. We don't want that. He says that faith, if it is not to fall prey to the subjective delusions, must be rooted in absolute truth. Of course. This is why we don't just have experience, bro. I put my experience over everything, bro. I saw the DMTLs, bro. Yeah, but that could be a deception, bro. Perception must be judged by truth. Experience must be judged by truth. Absolute truth. Capital T. But that is an epistemic and metaphysical question. But all of modernity is built on the rejection of epistemical, metaphysical questions. So here we are presented with an immediate problem. The immediate problem of modern man versus the idea, the principle, the reality of truth, capital T. And what does almost everybody do? Relativism. It's all relative, dude. It's all relative, dude. It's all relative, bro. It's whatever, man. Whatever floats your boat, bro. Whatever floats your boat, bro. Different strokes for different strokes rule the world. Yes, it does. It takes different strokes to rule the world. Literally everybody. Go to the university. Do a survey. Do a Mark Dice man on the street. 95% will say, it's all relative. I don't know. Right? NPC. And so we could classify this as, again, epistemic relativism, subjectivism, pure subjectivism, naive skepticism, all of these, positivism, they're all kind of classed in the same. They all ultimately mean the same thing. Nothing's true. And ultimately, we understand this position begins, its starting point, its foundational presupposition is the negation of truth. But of course, that's contradictory, isn't it? Well, yeah, of course it is. Right? Because in negating truth as my starting point, I have a truth. I have a truth, namely that there is no truth. But that's a truth claim. So it's contradictory from the outset. But to the fallen mind, so what? Cool. Life's mysterious, dude. Life's crazy like that, bro. For contradictions, man. I love the contradictions. That's literally how most people, especially at the university, that's how they're thinking. And he even mentions the coherence of truth. Right? He mentions all the stuff you hear me talk about. But truth, he says, is not a purely empirical category. Obviously, how many times have I brought that up in all the debates, right? The meaning of things, logical absolutes, are not exactly and cannot be exactly the same as any physical object or quality or atom in your head, molecule, whatever. Obviously, that's not the exact same thing as the number 7 or 2 + 2 is 4, right? Anything like that. Any logical, mathematical truth, principle, maxim, whatever, right? Obviously, they're not exactly the same as matter because they don't change, and matter changes. So truth is a metaphysical concept. It's a first principle. It's fine to talk about first principles. That's fine. But again, if we're critiquing the Thomist, when we're talking about first principles, we don't think they're self-evident maxims, self-evident to all people that don't operate on the basis of divine revelation. They do. So it just depends on what you mean by the term first principle. It's fine to talk about first principles. Truth, again, necessitates not just a metaphysical claim, but also an epistemic claim and also a ethical claim. And this is something I've talked about a lot too, and people haven't really paid attention to, or they haven't grasped what the point of this was, to point out that you can have, you can't make a claim that's about the truth that also doesn't assume or necessitate something to do with, no, I didn't fart, by the way, that's this chair. Let's see. That's my, we were talking about toots last night. Alan Watts is becoming popular amongst the nihilists. I just depleted the ozone, dude. That's why I'm actually secretly a globalist, and I'm working to increase CO2s and methane, and then that'll help the globalists depopulate everybody. Now I'm talking about, I'm all distracted by farts. I can't think. No, that's not farts. Somebody said I could fart on command. So we were talking about circular determinism, transcendental arguments. He moves then to talk about the fact that any claim in metaphysics will assume a claim about truth or epistemology. Any claim about epistemology assumes also metaphysical truths, right? It's a point we've made many times in debates and discussions. Next, though, he says that it's a great way to critique the determinist by talking about the determinist fallacy or the naturalist fallacy. Right? We talked about this with JF. If the person wants to adopt strict determinism, denial of free will and consciousness, then they have to be consistent with that and admit that their discovery of that truth was not a real discovery. Their actions are not really theirs. They're not really that smart. They're not really anything. That's all illusory. And it was just determined. It's just chemical reactions. And even the meaning that they ascribe to their thoughts, their belief system, their claims, even that is also illusory. It's just in their head. It's just solipsism. Yes, exactly. Determinism is circular, and it leads directly into solipsism, completely self-destructive as an ideology, completely self-contradictory as an ideology. And we need, in fact, when we talk about truth claims, when we do science, when we do anything really, we need absolute truth. We need the ideas of universal principles, right? That these universal principles are invariant, operant in the world, and they don't change with the flux of this world, right? The laws of logic, numerical principles, they don't just evolve into the opposite of themselves, right? I mean, if you were consistent with evolutionary theory, because they say they don't do metaphysics, but they turn around and metaphysics, the evolutionary dogma is a completely metaphysical dogma for them. But they're not consistent with it, because if it was really the case, then it could actually evolve to be the case that evolution is not true. But they won't admit that. But they should. To be consistent, they would have to say that. If evolution is true as a fact, as a metaphysical principle throughout the universe, couldn't it logically evolve to be the case that evolution is not true? They would have to admit that, but that's self-destructive to the presuppositions of that worldview. Naive empiricism is another option. So he's starting to move through these different cul-de-sacs that people move into to find what they think is like safe ground, or I'll just be an agnostic, right? So he's going to deal with each one of these. Pure agnosticism, naive empiricism, all of these nonsense positions, they just end up in solipsism. This is me and my mind, bro. You're just a manifestation of my mind, bro. And at that point, you might as well be taking DMT and believing whatever the elves tell you. Christianity is so retarded, superstitious. But the elves, bro, the elves blew my mind. I was under a shaman, man, and he guided me through the elf dimension after I went through a long tunnel. It was the colon of the universe, and it farted me out to the elf land. Man, the Keeblers they were blowing my mind, bro. So now in my YouTube feed, not all it is, because I watched 15 of those dumb videos, now all my feed is like, DMT trip report, DMT trip report, DMT. It's like 50 of them, dude. I need to go back in there and like erase that from my history, so I don't get nothing but dumb retards talking about elves. He also says, as a little side note, we live in an anti-intellectual century. Yes, exactly. Thank you. I felt a sigh of relief when he said that, because I feel that way. There is no natural theology in the Thomistic sense, because truth claims ultimately are grounded in revelation. Yes, absolutely. Here he says Scientism. Scientism is the modern man's mythology. Of course it is. And the atheist worldview operates completely on the presupposition that there is no divine revelation. There is no truth. And so truth must be what we make it. Truth must be what we create. Truth must be something that we derive from science and empiricism and intrepid investigation of the natural world will give us some loose deduction that we might be able, through the power of induction, come to the approximation of some Karl Popperian loose sense of a pragmatic truth. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't give you anything except complete contradiction and nonsense. Hence, modern man's double-minded doublethink. It becomes circular. You become trapped. I always think of you ever think he's trapped inside of a flat circle. It's like Matthew McConaughey when he's talking about being trapped inside of a flat circle. You ever thought about that? There is still the presupposition of ultimate truth, even in the midst of the denial of ultimate truth. And this applies to all of these dumb worldviews that try to make sense of this. Scientism, nihilism, progressivism, blah, 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 blah. All worldviews are based on presuppositions. It's unavoidable. You can't get away from it. However, this was neat too. He also says that most people who adopt these dumb worldviews, they do so to fit in. Yeah, of course. That's why I didn't go into academia. I don't want to fit in with those idiots. I don't want to fit in with them. I don't want to fit in with a bunch of people who hate God. They're miserable people, especially professors. And I love the section where he goes off on academia. Boy, was that not accurate. He says academia isn't academia. It has nothing to do with scholarship. It's only there to socially engineer. Exactly. Groupthink. Groupthink is what is the main driving force to bring people into line. That's why people believe in the grand metaphysical narratives of Darwinism. They think that it's empirical science and that some dude somewhere in some lofty, general hospital looking building is up there at the top of that building surrounded by, like 20 supercomputers and 5,000 beakers full of purple, green, blue liquids. And he's doing equations and shit. And like he's figuring it all out, bro. That's not what happens. It doesn't work like that. But that's in the mind of the person who thinks, I believe in science. I believe in science. Yeah, but Darwin's grand metaphysical narratives aren't science. Engineering, that's science, dude. That's some real science, right? Building a computer, that's some real science. Sitting around and speculating about what happened on Pangea 11 million years ago, that's not science. That's speculation. The abyss. This is where we first encounter what I thought about in terms of the DMT discussions that we've been having this week. Because a lot of people who talk about DMT in their experiences, or also LSD, it's not, I think Foucault did LSD if I recall. I don't think Foucault did DMT. I could be wrong. It doesn't really matter ultimately. Point is that, yeah, a lot of people who do either hardcore hallucinogens experience some notion of the abyss. I blacked out, and there was this point of light that spoke to me, but I was gone, and it was all black. More or less an out-of-body experience could be. Don't remember what was said or happened or anything like that. Maybe I was like a psychonaut and I went outside the known universe. Like that John C. Lilly says that. Here's an interview where he says that. He's like, I've been to the outer recesses of the universe in my trips and I united with the light and all this Luciferian type stuff. But regardless, it doesn't matter because there does seem to be something in a lot of people's experiences in this regard with the drug stuff or just in the straight up occult type stuff with the abyss. Now, that's not surprising. The Bible talks about Jesus talks about the abyss. The Apocalypse talks about the abyss. The abyss is a real spiritual plane. It's a void. You don't want to go there. That's probably Cthulhu demons in that place. You don't want to go there. But he mentions Foucault. Does he mention Foucault or did I mention Foucault? No, he just mentions the abyss. And the reason I brought up Foucault was that Foucault says that when he did his trip in what's that Death Desert? It's not called Death Desert, but what's the desert in California? Anyway, that desert. Death Desert. We'll rename it Death Desert. Skull Desert. Foucault was there. He said, I saw the abyss. I went there. He says, I came back and I was like, I'm down. I'm down with Death Valley. Thank you. Hemet, by the way, was actually hotter than Death Valley when I was in California 3 years ago. Hemet got up to 117 and Death Valley was like 110. That was crazy. I've never been in a place that hot before. It was crazy. 117. So Foucault did his acid. He came back. We were talking about this on Discord the other night. Somebody, thank you, by the way, a Discord friend who mentioned this story because I forgot about Foucault. And he said, I went through the abyss and I made a deal and I came back and I'm down for the total degeneracy. Let's have a Luciferian party. Let's bring the degeneracy, bro. Other Jesuits were doing acid. John Courtney Murray did acid. I suspect some of these Jesuits were doing acid, and they made some deals as well. So you say, there's no such thing as making a deal and coming back. There is if you do enough of this kind of stuff. Yes, you can. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the devil is going to keep his side of the bargain, because the devil is a liar. He's not bound to keep some bargain to you. The machine elves are not bound to tell you the truth, bro. Dum-dum. They lie. Demons lie. Newsflash. What does Paul say? Satan transforms into an angel of light and deceives. What did Seraphim Rose start the book out by saying? The real Antichrists are in the churches. So false absolutes. The idea of the early stage of the revolution was that man was going to come up with new ways to approach truth, right? Well, I'm going to take philosophy. I don't need religion, man. I'm going to take philosophy to find out truth. And at the end of my journey, I discovered there's no truth, man. That's every idiot in Philosophy 101, right? I'm just glad to be out of religion, man. Yeah, man. But the problem here is that logic is not the issue. This was a great statement. Man's problem is not logic, but another faith. Exactly. Because all worldviews are based on faith. And the idols of our day, the religious, superstitious idols of our day, are Darwinism, evolutionary theory, transhumanism, secularism, humanism, liberalism, socialism, libertarian capitalism, anarcho-capitalism. All of these secular atheistic positions, they're all worthless. They're all wrong. They're all dumb. All of them. And they're all constructed within the last few centuries as part of the revolutions. All of them as part of the revolutions against the old order. And what do they culminate in? What does the Soviet cosmist have in common with the Ayn Randian John Galtist? The power of technology to save man and give him immortality, right? Look up Russian cosmism and look at how the Soviets had all these dumb paintings of, oh, we're going to be flying around in little Jetsons, Foo Fighters, and we're going to, and it's all going to be a utopia, and Stalin's going to bring us this great utopia through Russian cosmism. And it was all nonsense. It was all stupid cheeseball posters from a Mystery Science Theater B movie. He says that the revolutionary spirit is what has affected the entire Western world, and then by extension the rest of the world, since the time of the revolutions. And I kind of think, I can't explain this fully, but it's my suspicion that there is a kind of spirit behind this. I don't know really how that works, but, we talk about a spirit of an age and all this kind of stuff. There is something to that, and just like people talk about like a Jezebel spirit and like a bunch of people participating in a Jezebel spirit, there's something to that. I think so. It doesn't mean necessarily that every single person is possessed with the, demon of Jezebel or something. It just means that you are partaking of that spirit. Paul talks about this in his epistles. And you can partake of different spirits, right? You can partake of this revolutionary spirit, I think. And that's unfortunately the entire milieu into which we are born in the modern world. And now there were revolutions prior to the French Revolution, which preceded the French Revolution, but the French Revolution is the most well-known, the most notorious, the most hallowed in the modern world. because of its extremity, because of its just extremes in all aspects, right? Scientism, atheism, outright Luciferianism. I mean, French Revolution was insane. And it really set the stage for the rest of the world revolutions. Yeah, I mean, the American Revolution is a part of that. It's an addendum, kind of an appendage. And yeah, 1776 was before 1789. But 1776, even though it was still that same spirit, it wasn't as extreme as French Revolution. But what happens is that the revolutionary ethos that's let loose, the revolutionary anti-old order, right? The ancient regime, the old regime, the removal of church and altar, crown and altar, right? The Masonic dictum, get rid of crown and altar. It didn't bring the utopia. Surprise, it didn't bring the utopia that everybody thought. Can you believe it? It didn't bring the utopia. Robespierre is chopping off tens of thousands of people's heads. By the way, Marie Antoinette did not say, let them eat cake. That was a thing that the revolutionaries made up. That was propaganda that the revolutionaries in the salons made up. Did you know that? Now, I'm not saying that means that there weren't degenerate French effete elites. There were. But that's not true. So, what did the Enlightenment and the French Revolution birth? Liberalism, right? Everybody knows this. Commies, yes, but capitalists too. This is what nobody talks about. This is not hard to figure out. Why can't everybody talk about the fact? It's not even debated as a fact of history that communism and capitalism are both flavors of the Enlightenment and French Revolution. There's no debate on it, but you just can't talk about it. The Jacobins are just as bad as the Girondins. How many times have we talked about that? And Seraphim Rose is making that point. I think he mentions Jacobins, but he doesn't go into the specifics of the Jacobins versus the Girondins. Who cares? Because it's all revolutionary nonsense. But it is based on dialectics, and he points out that the dialectic of the revolutionary capitalist and the dialectic of the revolutionary communist, they're all based on Enlightenment principles. They're all based on getting rid of the old order. And they don't bring the solutions that they promise. They bring as many or worse problems than before the revolution. And then what happens? The dialectic swings back into effect. Oh, we thought we were going to have the First Republic. We thought we were going to have the Second Republic. We thought we were going to have all this egalitarian democracy. Suddenly we've got a French emperor. Suddenly we've got Masonic Napoleon here. A what? We've gone from republics and democracy to emperor. What? Well, yeah, because it's all a bunch of nonsense. It's a joke. The revolutionary philosophies are not true. So the first stage, step one, phase one of our dialectic, Father wrote, and it's relevant because all of these same clowns exist today. They're on the internet. You're going to see each one of these phases existing as clown world online too. Who's the first phase? Well, it's the liberals. The demythologized hope in human progress liberal. We're going to have scientific socialism. We're going to have we believe in the power of man to erect a society based on freedom, truth, and the American way. The Frog Brothers. Or the Hulk Hogan song, right? Have you not heard Hulk Hogan's song where he's singing about America? I am a real American, fight for the rights of every man. And what this is a demythologized Christianity, liberalized Christianity. Get rid of all the supernatural nonsense and give me all the feelies Don't give me ultimate questions of metaphysics and truth. He says this is specifically a rejection of telos. Get rid of the metaphysical epistemic questions. Just give me the pragmatic theles and progressives. Now, this might hold people for a little while, and it still exists amazingly. It still exists today. I can't believe there are people that still believe this, but there are still aspects of society that adhere to this, like followers of AOC type, that level of like low IQ level. And these are the people who would actually believe that that progress is going to take everybody into the transhumanist ether, right? We're all going to become the transhumanist. They actually believe that DARPA is going to give this to them, right? That AOC is going to enact her climate deal, and then we're all going to be able to live free and have sex with ponies and dragons and whatever we want to do, and we'll be socialist. There won't be any money problems because the money will just be all given out equally. I mean, just like, whoa. But he goes back again to the Enlightenment period, and he says that this comes from this progressive idea, this naive progressive idiocy, this liberalized Christianity is a result of the Enlightenment. It is a result of the bullshit fake Christianity of Nietzsche's day. He's actually going to say Nietzsche's critique is correct. Right? In previous debates, I've said this. I said, yes, Nietzsche was correct in critiquing the liberalized Christianity of his day. I've been saying that. I learned that in undergrad when I took my Nietzsche classes. This is not rocket science. If you've had philosophy classes, you know all this stuff. But he goes back to Descartes, and he says, Descartes' deism, the best that you could hope for is that maybe one day there'll be an AI God that can save us. And that's literally what this leads to the transhumanism. But actually, what these dum-dums don't understand is that the people who are really behind transhumanism, they're like the late fourth stage Luciferians. They're not really the progressives. They're lying to you because you're dumb and naive, and you believe it. Even though they turn around and say they want you all dead, you actually believe that they're going to give you this technology. When I die, they're going to bring me back. They're going to bring me back one day. I'll be downloaded into my new body. I'll be able to walk around. I'll have a dragon body. I'll have a dragon body is what I want in the future, because they'll get the DNA of dragons and they'll bring them back, and then they'll be able to download you into whatever body you want. I want a dragon body, and then I can have sex with dragons like I always wanted to. That's literally what people believe. But deism leads directly to atheism. Of course it does. I mean, the God of deism is irrelevant and retarded. Makes no sense. It's right out of the lodge, right? Deism is Freemasonic philosophy. It leads to atheism. And that's why St. Gregory Palamas, in this debate, how many times? Hundreds of times you've heard me say it. He told Barlam, he said, your dumb philosophy is going to lead into a hellhole of atheism. The whole thing, all the presuppositions of the Western philosophical systems, they lead logically to atheism. That's what he told Barlam. And guess what? That's exactly what happened in the West. They followed the dark logical strain of the revolutionary ethos, its presuppositions out, to its logical conclusion of collusion, to where we are today of total techno-nihilism and global degeneracy. Here we are. And he says that the liberal Orthodox and the Roman Catholic Church, and it's accepted, he says that they are in the exact same position of the unbelieving idiocy of the liberal Protestant. You're all in the same group. And you're all in the same dialectic, and you've all lost the foretaste, the afterlife, and the belief in the spiritual world. The DMT dum-dums they know there's a spiritual world. But these liberal Orthodox, the liberal Roman Catholics, they don't believe that. And why is that? Because they are unbelieving. What does Jesus say when he goes to is it Capernaum, one of the cities, and he says he could do no miracle there because of their unbelief. Now, he could do whatever he wanted to, but that is there to illustrate the fact that he willed to only heal and only do miracles where he was accepted. It's not that he lacked the power to do it, but that he willed to only do it where people would believe. And in the Gospels, it says, no miracles there because you don't believe. Well, none of these liberal, they're not going to make converts. They're not going to save people out of atheism. They're not going to pull people out of the demonic delusion of DMT and all these traps. They're not going to do exorcisms. Although, no way. Get the whoa. All right. Exorcisms are a real thing, but they're not going to do that in these churches because they don't believe. Why would they? Of course they don't. They already serve the demons. They're not going to do exorcism when they're servants of Satan already. And they're not coherent. None of these worldviews are coherent. And ultimately, this immediately leads to the denial of the bodily resurrection. Absolutely. Who is Antichrist? John says, whoever denies that Christ has come in the flesh, and by extension, denies the bodily resurrection. That's spirit of Antichrist. Once again, participating in spirits, so to speak. So the liberal humanist ultimately ends up in a bunch of weaselly, feel-goody positions that are dumb. They don't make any sense. There's no point in the feel-goody positions. And this is why, this is where he says the Nietzschean is more consistent than the liberal Christian, or the liberal, or the progressive. The Nietzscheans are more coherent. Because Nietzsche said, look, if all that stuff's not true, then guess what, bro? Evil's now good. Duh. Exactly. It's all inverted. There's no reason why it should be inverted. There's no reason why it shouldn't be inverted. There's no reason behind either one of these positions or any of these positions. It doesn't fucking matter. That's the point. That's the point. And so Nietzsche is 100% right. And more consistent than all of these dumb, fake, liberal, so-called Christian people. Or the progressives or any of that crew. They're all idiots. And why are they idiots? Father Rose says. Why are they blind fools? He says, don't ever call anybody an idiot. Don't ever call anybody blind. Don't ever call anybody a fool. He does. Proverbs does. Dozens of times. How could you follow the Bible? How could you follow Proverbs if you could never call someone an idiot when they're being a freaking idiot? You can. Now, you don't have to be mean-spirited about it. There's nothing wrong with calling a spade a spade. Don't judge, bro. Don't judge. Don't judge. You're so judgmental. You're judging that I'm being judgmental, you dumb hypocrite. In telling me not to judge, you're judging that I'm judging. That's so stupid. Yeah, but I'm so spiritual. I'm so spiritual. That's not what it means. It doesn't mean don't judge. It's impossible not to judge. Literally. No wonder people don't take your religion serious. You act like an idiot. The Imperium. The Monarchy. That's what the old order is. Did you hear me? Page 28. A modern Orthodox person actually mentions monarchy in the Orthodox Imperium as being the divine order. You mean Big Macs and vaccines and putting my pee-pee where the poo-poo goes? That's not Christianity? What? You mean Americanism? That's not Christianity? What? Can you believe it? Can you believe he said that? It's amazing. If I had not read Father Rose, I would never have become Orthodox. I thought, you people are a joke. But he actually showed me there's still some sanity left in these people, and that they can actually critique worldviews, and they can be honest with their own history 400 years ago. You think anybody would have tolerated 400 years ago? All that Fordham bullshit in Orthodoxy? Anywhere in the world? No. Get out of here. Total satanic inversion. Yes, and thank you, Tristan. I did steal the pee-pee and the poo-poo from Tristan. Because that's what everybody seems to think is the most important thing out there. That's America. America. My Big Macs. I need my Big Mac. I need my vaccines and my Coca-Cola. I need my Coca-Cola. I'm starting to shake. I don't get my Coca-Cola. I need my insulin. I need my honey buns. I gotta have my honey buns. If I want to have sex with a honey bun, I can. Don't tell me I can't. Don't tell me I can't have sex with honey buns no more. This is America, you bigot. This is America, you bigot. I got to get that meathead out of my chat. I got to get that meathead Tristan out of my chat. Oh, he's telling you about diet. He's trying to tell you about diet. Listen here, asshole. When I diet, I drink diet. I drink a Diet Coke. That's the American diet. And you are a hateful bigot. Anyway, this is another great line here. This is amazing. Anarchists and Nietzscheans are way more consistent than so-called Christians and liberals and progressives. If you listen back in the days of me and John and Chris, all those afternoon commute calls that we did, all those great classics, we came to this conclusion that the anarchists and monarchists are more consistent than the Republicans. I speak not Republican Party, not those goofs. I'm talking about the philosophy of Republican, than a person who believes in Republicanism and Americanism. Because upon what authority is anybody supposed to accept the powdered wig man's documents? Exactly. And the anarchists can critique that. They're more consistent. Now, they're on the bad side of things, but their critique is correct, right? Right. The powdered wig man, that was Chris's joke. Got to give Chris props for his classic joke. The powdered wig man, they sprinkled their powder. They dusted out the powdered wig, and the magic powder, when it landed on the Constitution, when John Hancock and Satanist Ben Franklin, when they put their, it went into effect. And the Bible of Americanism was written right beside the King James, right beside the square and the compass, right beside the Gadsden snake all chopped up, serving Lucifer himself, America! But by what authority? By what authority am I supposed to respect grandma humping Ben Franklin, Satanist, alchemist, Hellfire Club Ben Franklin? Why am I supposed to respect his authority? It's a Christian nation. It's a Christian nation. America's a Christian nation. We're going to fight all them Islams. We're going to fight all them towel heads. America's a Christian nation. We're going to spread the pee-pee and the poo-poo to the whole world. Because we're a Christian nation. So the anarchists are more consistent than the dum-dums who believe in progressivism. And the republics and the democracies, what have they done? Nothing. They're nightmares. They're just as corrupt or worse than any of the monarchies. By the way, the Soviet experiment, the Bolshevik experiment, all the experiments of the 20th century, they're all based on Plato's ideals. Did you know what a Soviet is? A Soviet, it means republic. It's the same thing. Hold on one second. I got to plug this in. My battery's going. I forgot to plug it in. Just 1 second. Be right back. All right. Put the pee-pee in the poo-poo, it's American values. Put the pee-pee in the poo-poo, it's American values. If I want to have sex with honey buns, it's my right to do so, 'cause it's America. We get grants from foundations and they tell us what's right and wrong. There is no truth, said Nietzsche. And if there's no truth, then be consistent and stop trying to act like there's truth. Have sex with honey buns. And dragons. Because dragons are real too, because everything's real. Whatever you want is real. And also because the multiverse. Because in some multiverse, there is a dragon, there's a honey bun dragon that you could hump. In some multiverse. This is all rational. We can all believe that. Don't believe the Bible or Christianity, but believe in a multiverse where there's honey bun dragons, honey bun humpable dragons. You are a humpable honey bun dragon in one of those dimensions. That's rational and scientific, according to all the dum-dums. Then we move. Let's move on. We're never going to get through this. Academic world. Yes. He talks about the academic world. He says the academic world is a bunch of brainwashing. Go read my essay on that. Go listen to the old interviews that we did with Brett Venot of School Sucks podcast. We did a great talk on academic brainwashing a long time ago. That was a good talk. He says academia is a re-education camp. He says it's the exact same as the re-education camps. Yeah, exactly. I was in academia. I know. That's why I left. It's true. And then he goes on to basically just say the kind of stuff that I would say St. John of Kronstadt has said, right? Monarchy, imperium, all that kind of stuff. Completely at odds with the gospel. Universities are there to indoctrinate people with relativism. By the way, have you read The Vision of St. John of Kronstadt? Whoa, dude. You want to see some evidence, some proof that Orthodox people have clairvoyance? That Orthodox people do have the gift of prophecy? I'm not talking about dumb, charismatic idiots. I'm talking about a real prediction from an Orthodox person, verifiably. Arguably, you could say Dostoevsky kind of does that with demons, but an even crazier, clearer one is the vision of St. John of Kronstadt about what would happen to the liturgies throughout the world. He predicts the Novus Ordo. He predicts the clown masses. That is crazy. So, yeah, exactly. And it's not that long. So everybody should read The Vision of St. John of Kronstadt. If you doubt that he knew what was up and that he didn't have a real charism, that he didn't know what he was talking about, saying all the same stuff I said about monarchy and all this stuff, then go read his vision. Nobody doubts that St. John of Kronstadt wrote that vision before any of this stuff happened. Here's one. I think this is, I'll put it in the chat here. Yeah, this is it, I think. Yeah. Yeah, so basically in, what year is this? 1901, he foresaw all the clown masses in the world. And nobody in 1901 had any idea that any such thing would ever come about or happen. That's crazy. So and I'm gonna add it to the show description too, because this is pretty crazy. So all you skeptics out there, you want to see an example? Here's a dude in 1901 predicting that the entire world would experience some bizarro version of Christianity where there's clown masses. He talks about clown masses. That is pretty crazy. So there's a great example of clairvoyance, prediction. It's not a prophecy in the sense of divine revelation, so don't freak out here. We're not saying that. But St. John, Shanghai, this happens. This is very common in Orthodoxy. People have clairvoyant type experiences. And by the way, on the Twitter feed too, this is relevant to the DMT type stuff. You know, where Saint Ignatius Brankanov, he has that quote too about the spiritual experiences of the monastics. Sounds a lot like the DMT stuff, right? But he's saying beware. If you're entering monastic life, you're gonna, be experiencing pretty intense spiritual warfare. It's very real, and he says that if you're a new convert or a person who's converting or whatever, he says you're still kind of in the presence of a lot of the demonic because you haven't progressed. He's not saying you're possessed. He's just saying that you haven't made your way, out of a lot of worldly. You haven't made progress yet in the spiritual life is the point. And he says, so beware because you're going to encounter a lot of spiritual opposition is essentially the way he puts it. Maybe I should just read it. I have to get it off my Twitter here. Let's see. But my buddy Joseph, longtime Orthodox guy, shout out to Joseph. Thank you for that quote. Good buddy of mine that for many years helped me along in my trek towards Orthodoxy. Shout out to Joseph. And let me just read what St. Ignatius says, and I'll put it up here for you guys too. So let me scroll back for that. Because he was like, hey, I listened to what all y'all were saying about DMT. He said the Joe Rogan stuff is goofy. All these people thinking they're going to get some great mystical experience. It's all nonsense, overrated. And they don't understand that they're stepping into something that they're not ready for. Not that you should do DMT. No, you don't have to. We're all going to face this spiritual stuff eventually. So it might be a good idea to be ready for it the right way. So here's what he says. Let's see what this quote. For those who are beginning the monastic life, the Cenobitic monasteries are more suitable since they provide wide scope for the practice of the commandments of God. But even if you have entered into a state-supported monastery, what? A state-supported monastery? What? Can't believe that. Can you believe that? Symphonia. Do not be despondent and don't leave it without good reason. Yeah, in more normal times, this would exist. In fact, did you know Hitler he really thought the monasteries were a waste? Yeah, Hitler was anti-Christian. Newsflash. There's a general rule which says that a monk must first train himself by the practice of commandments in human society where spiritual activity is combined with bodily activity. Afterwards, after he has made sufficient progress, he might occupy himself exclusively with spiritual activity in solitude and silence if he proves apt for it. Souls fit for solitude and silence are rare, right? Father Rose was a guy fit for solitude. A beginner cannot possibly bear purely spiritual activity. By means of spiritual activity, we enter into that world of spirits. That is just why experienced monks retire into solitude. In the world of spirits, it is fallen spirits that first meet a Christian, since he belongs to their company spiritually on account of the fall. And he must prove good in the direction of his free will and set his soul in the set of his soul on account of the set of his soul by rejection of fellowship with the fallen spirits and by the acceptance of the fellowship with God, which is granted as a free gift by the Redeemer. Spirits easily discourage and defeat the soul who has entered into conflict with them without sufficient experience and without due preparation. The fulfillment of the commandments in human society provides the person who fulfills them with the clearest and most exact experimental knowledge of fallen human nature and the nature of fallen spirits. And his point was just simply to say that if it's difficult for people entering monastic life, how dumb and foolish for goofuses and D-bags who do DMT to introduce themselves into the realm of the spirits. It is foolishness. Very foolish. That was the point. And that's a great point. Anyway, let's get back here to the book. Or we're going to be here all night. Oh, there we go. What are people arguing? The Hitler? Anyway, back to the book. So we're talking Seraphim Rose here. I don't know what all's going on in the chat there. I can't see much of craziness going on. We'll read the super chats here in a minute. But so no, he's not just critiquing. He's critiquing fascism because it's pagan. In the 20th century, he's critiquing Marxism. He's critiquing Sovietism. All these systems. Exactly what I've been doing. You hear me critique them all. Because they're all based on revolutionary thought and scientism. So the universities, yeah, I put the John Kronstadt there. He talks about cosmism, Russian cosmism. I already mentioned that. We joked about that. Then he says there's another approach. So he says, forget the liberal, let's move to number two. Number two is the realist. So the realist is the hardcore grounded on the, we're going to face up to reality. We're not going to pretend all this liberal nonsense is true. We're going to be more like Ayn Rand, more like Robert Taylor. Remember Bitcoin Taylor that I debated? Let's get money. Let's get paid, dog. Let's stack some cash, and let's live according to the reality. Let's not worry about all this abstract stuff. You're not ever going to solve any of that stuff. Let's be physicalists. Let's build Galt's Gulch. Why would we build Galt's Gulch anyway? Because why does that even matter? Build Galt's Gulch full of sex bots, I guess, for pleasure. If you're an incel, why would you build Galt's Gulch? Who cares? But this also is just based on scientism, and ultimately it's geared towards the erection of the Tower of Babel. Let's erect a human society based on reality. So forget the progressivism. Let's be more consistent. Let's have a technocracy. Let's depopulate. Let's operate society on the basis of rational values, reason, right? Scientism, capitalism. It doesn't matter. Any of those could be fitting into this scheme here. Fascism, monopoly capitalism, megacorps running the world. Those all fit under the realistic approach. And the realistic approach, he argues, is what gave rise to the dictators, right? To the third position, to the Stalins, to the Hitlers, to the Mussolinis, to the simple approach. He argues that the dictators had the idea of, let's just be realistic, and let's have a simple approach of basically an efficient corporate-run society. Taylorism, right? Henry Ford's Taylorism is what's going to run the whole society. Well, that's kind of where we are, aren't we? Right? And that's progress because man's solutions are simple. From liberty to dictator, right? Just give us the solution. Just fix shit, man. Who cares? Just fix it. Everything's messed up. Just fix it. By whatever means. Thus, we get the efficiency of the Hitlerian perspective, the eugenic perspective, the idea that we will create some form of superior biological man. Thus, there was the hatred of monarchy on the part of Hitler and the SS. Hitler loved the car, the automobile, which was one of my trad friends a long time ago, funny guy. He called it the mechanical Jacobin. And some of you will know exactly who I'm talking about. But that's kind of what the car is. The car is a mechanical Jacobin, right? Why does it exist? For freedom, to increase freedom, right? And then we got various experiments in state-funded atheism and atheistic states, USSR, Bolshevism, democracy, whatever. The UK, you could argue that the UK is a democratic, monarchic, atheistic state. And by the way, yeah, he mentions, if you want key figures of this kind of perspective, Julian Huxley. who coined transhumanism. Exactly. So again, that was great to see. We're going to be doing the Julian Huxley book here pretty soon. And he says the problem is that the first stage of the guys that we mentioned, the liberal, has to face up to the reality, right? He has these lofty ideals of, fuzzy, warm fuzzies, and then that doesn't mesh with reality. No, of course not, right? Because reality is gritty, it's tough, it's Thomas Hobbes, right? So then we have to go from the liberal nonsense, and then we adopt the brutality of the regime, the realist. And Father Rose says, it doesn't matter whether you're a Bolshevik or a National Socialist. You're both satanic. And that's because both of these positions are not concerned with the kingdom of heaven. They're concerned with the kingdom of now, the kingdom of this world. And ultimately, he says, those lead to a kind of brave new world. He says, but we can also talk about another perspective, what he calls vitalism. This is another swinging of the dialectic. And it could be a trialectic, quadrilectic, doesn't matter. Vitalism, you could say, is the kind of reverse utopia. He says a kind of a more terrible brave new world, a realistic paradise, which is not achieved in the dictator world. So in vitalism, you kind of have this retreat into mysticism, the spiritual, the magical, the mystical, the occult mystic. And he says the great example of this would be W.B. Yeats. Yeats said after reading Huxley and rationalists, he says, I detested them because I missed the simple animistic, spiritualistic religion of my childhood, pagan, Celtic, demonic stuff. And if you read W.B. Yeats, he says the elves are real. So once again, we're back at the clockwork machine elves, because W.B. Yeats has whole essays on how the elves are real. Guess what? He was doing drugs. That's how the elves are real. And he was in Crowley's cult too, by the way. So he's picking basically occult types here. Here's where we get again, once again we come back. So after the vacuum of all this scientism and rationalism and, we're going to have Neil deGrasse Tyson and, oops, here we are back at DMT, bro. Machine elves, bro. We come full circle. The revolution comes full circle. Oh, it was superstitious. Christianity was so dumb. And look how evolution is so, but wait a minute. Evolution actually leads me to DMT and the machine elves, bro. And but Christianity is still stupid. Oh, but maybe there's aliens, bro. There's no God, but the aliens put us here, bro. And what's the absurdity here? Here's the key point on page 43 that Jay's analysis points out that none of the other people are pointing out. Most hardly anybody's pointing out. What's the absurdity here? That all of this is about questioning assumptions, right? Each one of these guys is critiquing the previous guy. But nobody's questioning the Enlightenment assumptions. Now, the fascist types, the Nietzschean types, they'll say, we are questioning the Enlightenment assumptions. We think the Enlightenment assumptions, but they're not. Because they're saying there's no truth. And the skeptical relativists and the Nietzscheans, they're all in the same crew of saying there's no truth. So where does all this take us? The vacuum of Christianity. Now we're back at the New Age. Now we're back at Luciferianism. Now we're back at a retreat into art. It's gonna retreat into art, man. But guess what? If all this other stuff, art's meaningless, bro. If all this other stuff's true, art is meaningless too. If nihilism is true, nihilism, right? JF is more consistent. JF's more consistent than Stefan. I'll give JF that. And that's what Seraphim Rose would say, right? Seraphim Rose would say JF is more consistent than Stefan, who is an echo of the Enlightenment philosophy and principles. And JF is more consistent by saying, I am a nihilist. So here we are back at the world of the gurus. Oh, you missed enlightenment. You missed experiences, bro. You missed your experiences. You didn't get deep mystical experiences in Richard Dawkins. You didn't see the face of Dawkins inside the bread when you cook bread. Did you see Darwin in the stain on the wall? Did you have a mystical experience with Darwin, bro? Nope, you didn't. But man sure does crave those mystical experiences. So here we are. We've come full circle in our dumb dialectical revolution from scientism and rationalism, Kant, Ricardo, Adam Smith, Robespierre, and we've come all the way back around to DMTLs and bro jogging, bro. Have you even smoked bro jogging, bro? And it doesn't matter what dumb cult and mysticism you want to put in here. You can put any of them in. You can put your blood cult of worshiping the Volk out amongst the wolves. The wolf pack. Drink the blood. Join the wolf pack. You can put your shaman. You put your self-help guru. You put your Eastern Zen mysticism. You put your literary guys, D.H. Lawrence. Transcendentalists. I read the Transcendentalists, dude. Like, I just kind of go back to nature. My religion is nature. I read the Transcendentalists. Essentially, any of the New Age, New Thought, positive thinking, self-help, Far Eastern, blah, 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 blah. It's all garbage. Because it's all after a fleeting, fading experience. Now, there's a bit of truth. I will say, too, there's a bit of truth in each one of these, right? So Father Rose is correct to point out that each one of these phases has a bit of truth. They're not all completely wrong. And what the mystic seeks, he does seek a valid experience, right? That's why we say with St. Gregory that the goal is the direct experience of God. Absolutely. That's what we're after. Seeking God here. And that is experiential. So there is an existential element to orthodoxy for sure. And there is a logical element to orthodoxy, right? Just like the first guy. And there is a realist element to it as well. And then we get the dark logic of unbelief that leads inexorably to the abyss. One of the best sentences in the book. The logic of unbelief that leads inexorably to the abyss. Exactly. The dark logic. And then he goes on to say, these positions basically rage against truth and ultimately seek to destroy the truth. But he says what's interesting is that in all these previous ones, he says they're still reaching for truth. They're still reaching for the possibility of there being truth. He says, and what's unique to the final position, what I think we could call kind of authentic, maybe Luciferianism, is that the nihilism of destruction is the real, true, consistent nihilism. Spiritual nihilism, the true Luciferian conception of nihilism, which has shed the nonsense, the baggage of all these previous positions, seeing how dumb they are. Who cares about values, right and wrong, and all that stuff if there's no capital T truth? It's all subjective and it's all nonsense. Quite literally, the apex, the apogee of Luciferianism. Right? Same thing. Am I right to use apogee in that way? Is that right? Anyway. That is the first half of the book. We're going to stop before the nihilism of destruction. And then the next chapter, the next section is the theology and the spirit of nihilism. And then it's the nihilist program in action. And then what's beyond nihilism and the philosophy of absurdism. So yes, even the absurdist, philosophy of the absurd, plays into this. So that is the first half. If you've been watching, thank you. I'm going to read the super chats now. We'll go through those one by one. And if you want to hear the rest of this talk, you can subscribe at Jay's Analysis for a mere pittance, right? It's very cheap. You're getting quality stuff here. We're not ripping people off. We're not charging out the butt. $4.95 a month, $60 a year. Subscribe at Jay's Analysis. Credit card, PayPal, whatever. You can also, if you want to, subscribe through Patreon. If that's what you use. We can also set up tutoring. Still doing tutoring pretty regularly. If you want to set up personal guided tutoring in philosophy, apologetics, whatever you're interested in that I talk about, geopolitics, whatever. You can set all that up. And you can also get the books, Esoteric Hollywood 1 and 2, signed copies, also available at Jay's Analysis. Let's get to some of these super chats. We had a good crowd tonight, 350 or so, 60. Jay, I can't find the link for the professional sessions. It's just the Patreon. I guess I should add a link specifically for that, probably. Yeah, I need to do that, I guess. But yeah, so just go to Patreon and you can do it that way. Most people who want to do the tutoring, I just have that set up through Patreon. So you can sign up for the different tiers there. Sadvorian. So, but thank you for that $10. Appreciate that. Wizard NZ $5. Appreciate your work. Thank you, Wizard. Appreciate those 5 New Zealand bucks there. Hope you enjoyed The Lord of the Rings. We know that New Zealand gave us The Lord of the Rings. Evan Schultz, $10. Thank you for covering this important work. I credit Father Rose and Jay for moving me towards Christ. Well, thank you, Evan Schultz. We certainly don't deserve the credit that he does. He's done a lot better, more eloquent job in his books. But we hope we can echo the statements of people who are confirmed in the faith. And thank you very much, Evan. Roughing the Pastor Bear. Man, I'm getting kind of tired. I gotta drink a little coffee here. Fat content, dude. PHAT content. Best channel on YouTube. Wow. Thank you. I read Father Rose's Nihilism. Which Father Rose book should I read next? Well, I mean, Genesis, creation, early man. I mean, might as well. I mean, unless you just have an aversion to really long books. It's a beast, but anybody who makes it through this beast is worth it. I can tell you that. It is worth it. Pro Cayman on 20 pounds. Thank you for your time and effort. I had to study weeks over weeks to come to the knowledge on my own. You helped me a lot in driving deeper into orthodoxy. Awesome. Please keep doing what you're doing. Fantastic work on Orthodox side. Thank you very much. Appreciate those 20 pounds. And yeah, we're trying to fill an open space here. A lot of people think, oh, he's trying to capitalize on moving into the space of being the Orthodox dude. No, I want there to be a whole bunch of people doing this. How many times do I bitch about the fact that people aren't doing this? Why aren't all of these other people who say they're Orthodox, why aren't they making these videos and doing these talks? It shouldn't be me. It shouldn't be a layman like me. There should be all these priests and all these bishops should be doing these theological talks. Where are they? Why aren't they doing it? I'm certainly not sufficient for this. It's what I said to Vox Day when I sent him a super chat. Even though I don't agree with everything that the Vox believes, I do think Vox has wisdom. And that's what's missing today, is that there's all these people with a lot of knowledge and data, but there's not many people that actually have wisdom. So that's what's missing, right? It's not about just getting on here and spouting facts. It's about applying principles consistently in specific cases, right? If you read Proverbs, read about, the way Solomon judged cases, the hoes, right? The baby mamas after the baby. And the reason Solomon is praised in that story is because of his wise application of the law. That's what's lacking today, is wisdom. $3.99, Marie Brandt. Thank you, Marie. Much appreciated. Blessings to you. OrthoNat, $5. Would you debate with Ray Comfort? People keep mentioning this name, Ray Comfort. He sounds like he would be on TBN or something like that. I'm not dissing the guy. I have no idea who Ray Comfort is, but his name keeps coming up. Every time I think Ray Comfort, I think of like a TBN preacher with like a giant pompadour and like an old out-of-date suit. And he's got the microphone here, and he's got big jewels on, and he's talking about the Lord. That's what, when I hear the name Ray Comfort, that's what I hear. Or I think of Ray, the way that squirrel went berserk in the First United Church of Pascagoula. No, wait, First Self-Righteous. Who's that? Ray Stevens. Ugh, Ray Stevens. If you're from Tennessee, you know who Ray Stevens is. I had to grow up with that stuff. Not that even anybody in my family listened to that stupid Ray Stevens song, but again, if you're from Tennessee, you've heard that all of those dumb Ray Stevens songs. Talk about not funny. Although he did do a new video that I admit, he did do one funny video. He did a spoof about Taylor Swift. I think that was kind of funny. But that's like the only thing that in 30 years of Ray Stevens that I thought was funny. The day the squirrel went berserk in the First Self-Righteous Church of Pascagoula. Just grueling, dude. So anyway, when I think Ray Comfort, I think of Ray Stevens. So he's a popular Protestant in America, and he has a YouTube channel called The Living Waters. Welcome, friends, to The Living Waters. It would bring lots of traffic. You know what, though? Most of these people just don't want to debate. Every guy, I appreciate all you guys like suggesting all the debates, but most people don't want to do it. David Wood. Somebody was trying to set up a debate with David Wood. He didn't want to do it. And I don't know who David Wood is, but he has like some giant channel. He just argues with atheists on the street or something. Some evangelical dude. I said, yeah, I'll debate that dude. He didn't want to do it. But yeah, I would debate Ray Comfort. But I'm having a hard time putting up with the nonsense. I mean, we were going to try to have that Matt Slick debate. I didn't last 10 minutes before I was like, Boomer, get out of here. STFU, Boomer. I'm not trying to hear that. I ain't trying to hear that. That didn't last 10 minutes. And, I do try to pull rank on me and be all, I'm sorry, bro. I'm not 20 anymore. I'm 40. Boomers aren't going to pull rank on me now that I'm 40. So get that out of here. I ain't trying to hear that. Get that out of here. Yes, Father Shooping's book is on my recommended reading list. For presuppositionalism, Daniel Suleanu. Definitely a good one. But again, as we see, tonight's book, completely presuppositional critique. I will debate Ray Comfort. I bet you Ray Comfort doesn't want to debate. What we need to do is to have a fruitful debate with Robert Sungenis, because I actually respect him. He's a smart dude. He's not a clown cake, and he would be, reasonable. These other clowns are not reasonable. The problem with all the Protestants is Dunning-Kruger. They don't know how much they don't know, and they think that they're full of boomer pre-list. DC Customs, thank you. $5, 2016. Can you do a vid in which you debate yourself as Russ from True Detective? That would be, that's not a bad idea. You mean Rust? I guess he would be a Nietzschean, wouldn't he? You know, it's just like a flat circle. All right. Atheism is true because we just live in a flat circle. I think my McConaughey has gotten better over the years. I listened to my old one that I did like 2 years ago, and I was like, ooh, that's pretty rough. It wasn't terrible, but I think it's gotten better. That is a funny idea for a video. I had another funny idea for a video too about Scientism. That could be pretty funny. I saw somebody had a really great skit that they did making fun of Darwinism and Scientism. It was like a professionally produced skit by some comedy people that I think they were Irish or British. I can't remember, but it was really well done. If anybody can find that video, I've never been able to dig it back up from 8 years ago on YouTube. It had a lot of views. I had like 80,000 views. But it's a good idea. They were making fun of Darwinism in a really clever way. But I don't know what happened to that video. It's down the gulag, YouTube gulag, I guess. But it's not a bad idea. I was actually toying with the idea of doing a debate against myself as a Calvinist. I was going to dress up like a Calvinist pastor, but I don't know. I have such little patience with people. Unfortunately, I need to get more patience. I might go off on myself as a Calvinist. All right. Anyway, Ryan's Internet Adventure 499. Thank you, Ryan. Hey, Jay, I feel like biological determinism is another religion. Yes, that's exactly what Father Rose argued in the book, along with Darwinism. Yes, of course it is. Because all worldviews are religious in nature and commitment, even if they don't know that, or if they don't believe that, or even if they're unaware of that. All worldviews have the same presuppositional commitments. Because all worldviews are just a philosophy based on ethics, metaphysics, and epistemology. Everybody has some view of all three of those, whether they want to or not. Even if they're agnostic, that's still a view. And all of those views rely on some principle of truth, even the denial of truth. And so therefore, all worldviews are fundamentally religious in nature. Abso-frickin-lutely. Hunter 84, but thank you. Great question. Hunter 84, 23 pounds. Thank you. 23.99. Blessed are those who hear the word of God and keep it. Agree with that, yeah. Absolutely. I was listening to Matthew today, and I was thinking about that very thing because of I was thinking about the demoniacs, and I was thinking about DMT because we've been talking about all this DMT stuff. Everybody's talking about DMT and the L's now because of, Alex Jones going back on Joe Rogan and all that. And so I was listening and going through Matthew again, and I was thinking about, all the encounters with possessed people. I was thinking, man, I already knew this, but it's just reinforced, that the gospel's perspective, there's demons, dude. There's demons that are influencing people, not just crazy possessed people like maniac, but ideologies. You think about it from the perspective of Christ in the Gospels. He says that the Pharisees are worse than the people who are the demoniacs. And that's what Father Seraphim Rose said. Exactly. Yeah. Let's see. Daniel Siliano again. Thank you. $20. Why have so many on the right elevated IQ to God status when every single high IQ, wealthy, technical society has a sub-replacement fertility rate? It's akin to worshiping that which destroys you. Yeah, exactly. In fact, and again, we cover this in the Miles Copeland talk, part of the Global Book Series, Game of Nations, famous CIA operative. Again, who else is covering these books? Nobody. Nobody's covering Game of Nations. I'm giving you gold, bro. Giving you gold. And in Game of Nations, he says that they modernized Egypt so that they could reduce population. That was the whole point. And so, yes, with luxury and blessings comes decadence and self-destruction. And the CIA knows that, and that was the whole reason that they modernized that country. And so the elevation of IQ is, again, based on the sort of Malthusian classical worldview, Victorian ideology, Darwinian ideology, that the best way to set up the perfect society so that man can live forever, or the elite can live forever, is to enact a philosophy based on the philosophy of the elite living forever, which is essentially called dysgenics, which is enacting covert means everywhere to make sure that people don't repopulate and that they die. Dysgenics. So that only the elite go into the future, so that the elite can then continue to sort of breed higher and higher IQs, so that they can create better and better computers, so that they can download themselves into computers and become computer gods. That's why. And so the elevated IQ stuff that's like old 100-year-old stuff. So all that stuff that, I mean, yes, I know about IQ. I read all those IQ books 10 years ago. And the stuff that like Stefan's talking about, when he talks about IQ, he's not wrong to talk about IQ and disparities and all that. But the elite have moved past all that. They don't care about that. What they're concerned with is the transhumanist stuff. They're not concerned about some race, except for wiping out certain people groups, right? But they're not interested in 1920s eugenics philosophy. They're way beyond that. They're interested in Blade Runner, download Ghost in the Shell type shit. That's what they're into. Okay. So we're way beyond, 1920s. And a lot of that had to do, though, we wouldn't be where we are now if we didn't have the worship of biological determinism from the teens, 10, 20s, and so forth. So basically that biological determinist IQ worship has combined with the same period, 19, teen, 10, 20, 30s, technocracy, which was a weird fringe idea at the time. That's combined together. That's the guiding ideology of the global elite. All right, read the Bill Joy essay that Alex Jones always talks about. The future doesn't need us. There you go. Yes, read that. Why the future doesn't need us. Bill Joy. Read that essay. That's the whole thing right there. What are the Tanner Terry? What's the reference on the noose? There's just Google Orthodox noose, and you'll get like 3 or 4 essays. Those are good. Just read St. Gregory Palamas. Everybody's freaking out. Not you, but I'm saying everybody's freaking out trying to figure out all this stuff. Just read the triads. They're not that long. Just read the triads. Why doesn't everybody just read the triads? I'm not bitching at you, Tanner. Nick Freyerson, £5. Thank you. Appreciate that, Nick. Dalton, $5. Thank you, Dalton. Dalton from Roadhouse, my fellow philosophy grad. Dalton from Roadhouse. Can you rip out a throat, Dalton? Thank you for all the premium content, my dude. You bet, bro. Do you even smoke, bro? Joking, bro. Zgrom 30 A's. I still don't know what the A's are. Whoa, I scrolled down too far. Thank you very much for the Philip Sherrard critique of Teilhard is great. Everybody, anytime somebody says, what about Teilhard, I send them he also has a great essay about Platonism. Sherrard does, critiquing Platonism, logic in the absolute. Yeah, that's a great essay too. I need to add that to the recommended reading list, by the way. Shrubbery Salesman, $5. Please record a rendition of that pee pee poo poo honey bun ditty Beep, beep, boop, boo, honey bun diddy. Euphony, euphoria, euphony amidst the filth. Jethro Tull. $10. I've been a Jay's Analysis subscriber since I heard you on Clyde Lewis several years ago. Thank you. Any chance you'll come back on soon? Actually, I sent Clyde and Ron 2 copies or copy of the new book. So the way it works on Clyde Lewis is that Ron will send you a message 3 hours before the night that they want you to come on. Not that I'm bitching, I love it. It's just funny. So you'll never know when you're going to go on Clyde Lewis until Ron sends you the email the night of going on Clyde Lewis. But I was on with Clyde not too long ago, like maybe when they were talking about Beyonce and American Horror Story and witches and all that stuff. 3 months. So I was on with Clyde 3 months ago. And presumably, hopefully, if Clyde wants me back, now that he's got a copy of the new book, he'll have me back on. But yeah, that's all up to Clyde and Ron. I love your Tragedy and Hope lectures and discussions with Tim Keller. Thank you. Hopefully you've also checked out the other Globalism book talks. They're in a playlist on the YouTube channel there. You can find them all easily. Dan the Man, $2. Thoughts on the positivity guys like Tony Robbins. I went on a date with an Asian chick one time, a long time ago, and she was talking about going to Fiji with Tony Robbins and walking on coals. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, I went to Fiji and I walked on hot coals with Tony Robbins. Okay. So what does that tell you? Misty Ernst, $1. Thank you, Misty. Appreciate that. Buck. Randy Churchill, $20. I know Matt Slick. Uh-oh. I challenged him to have you on his program in Boise, and he would not respond. He ignores me now that I'm not a deformed Christian. Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't. So what happened was that I was asked to come into. I need to quit just going into people's space. Like, so what happens is somebody will message me and they'll say, hey, here's an apologist who wants to debate you. And I say, okay. And then I go to that person's Facebook or their Discord or their group or what. And then I get there and they freak out and they're like, whoa, what are you doing? Whoa, I don't want to have a debate right now, but okay, let's have a debate right now. And then they get all just, they lose it, dude. So I was really calm, collected. Matt Slick was asking questions. I said, well, here's what I think about the New Testament, what Revelation is. And so he immediately starts interrupting. Just boomer arrogance interrupting. Oh, I feel sorry for you. Well, I feel sorry that you left this and that. Well, what does that mean? What is? And I'm like, whoa, dude. Let me finish. You asked me a question. Let me finish. And then it just went downhill from there. And so he wouldn't let me finish. I said, you are a satanic boomer. And other things. And he didn't handle that too well. So there's not going to be any Matt Slick debates. So if I can't have an exchange without people like just immediately just losing it and cutting me off, it's done. So thank you for the support, Randy. Appreciate that. Sorry but that's what the Reformed do. They are experts in excommunicating everybody who doesn't agree with everything. There's nobody more divisive, more schismatic than Calvinists. They're truly satanic. I mean, Calvinists are evil. Not every Calvinist, but the philosophy. And it's Nestorian to the core. Orthodox Pilgrim 999. The reason why people chase after pseudo-spiritual answers through all sorts of materialistic means is that they are actually trying to find real spirituality, the real spiritual. Yes, that's the point of the book. Exactly. the realms of God, and they need to repent. Yes. So it's not about some experience. It's not about your ego and your intellect like exploding through. I talked to the DMT elves, bro, and they told me I was God. I listen again now that after these 15 of these dumb videos, my whole YouTube feed is nothing but DMT trip report, bro. And I listened to like 5 more of these today, and they're all, I'm God. They told me I'm God, bro. So Tristan made his joke video today, or yesterday, which was really funny. He made a joke response, a DMT trip report response to my DMT trip report, where he's trying to one-up me by being more humble. Pretty funny. I'll add that to the chat below, by the way. His DMT trip report. Really funny video. Hilarious. But it's illustrative because, yes, as Seraphim Rose says, in this book, people are seeking real spirituality. And the way to that is not to have a psychological car wreck by playing psychological Russian roulette with hallucinogens. Orthonat, $10. Are the toll houses real? Yes, I think there's some aspect to which the toll houses are real, whether it's 7 or 20 or how it all works metaphysically. I don't know, but there's something about, we don't know everything about how it works spatially and temporally in the afterlife. But yes, there's something to this. You can go too far with it being all allegorical and doesn't mean anything. And then you can go crazy with it to where it's like Orthodox purgatory. And, well, how much do I owe the angel of the 7th toll house for my sin of, it would drive you crazy. So I don't know. So the truth is probably somewhere in between. But I think that there is a valid toll house somewhere in the middle theory. But also, again, St. John of Damascus writes a whole book. He doesn't mention toll houses, and that's the Orthodox faith for him. If it was, dogmatic to the degree that, like, if you don't have every jot and tittle about the toll houses right. No, but the toll houses is true in some sense. I'm also not an expert on the toll houses. Again, I've read Father Rose's book. I've read Greek critiques. I've not read the giant book from the monastery yet. So I will report back when I read the giant book. But anyway, thank you, Orthonet. The premise of the toll house is the fact that demons will be after you when you die. I mean, again, yeah, some of it gets a little silly, and not all the saints' accounts of this make sense. So again, we're talking about something that's outside of the realm of time and space, in the spiritual realm. It's just like when people try to explain these dumb DMT visions to you. It's hard to explain. And I've never died, but I've had, the hallucinogen experience, hardcore, blacked out of body type stuff. And it's hard to explain. So saints are explaining the spiritual realm in a similar way. And I don't know how that works out, but there's something to it, yes. David Singh, $5. Father Fowson has been doing talks on Revelation. Cool. We're going to get to that one day, hopefully, Lord willing. I've got several books I want to finish before I get to my apocalypse talk. I know that's it's a dangerous thing too. I don't want to venture into territory. I don't want to be presumptuous. It's presumption. I'm not saying that he's presumptuous. I'm just saying in general, it could be presumptuous to try to go into the apocalypse. But, yeah, it could be done. It could be done. But there's several books that I want to read before I would do an apocalypse talk. But I do think in the last few years of really reading a lot of because the thing about the apocalypse is that you have to really have Ezekiel down. You have to really have Zechariah down. All the minor prophets, Daniel. You really have to know the Deuterocanon very well too. Maccabees, I'm saying. So, and most people don't have that down very well. And you really can't, there's no way to understand the apocalypse if you don't understand all of the prophetic imagery from Zechariah and Daniel and Ezekiel that it's drawing from, obviously. So I would say, an apocalypse type, and you need to know the liturgy. That's the other thing that people don't know about, is that the Orthodox have the upper hand on understanding the apocalypse. Yes, I know that the apocalypse is not an important part of the Orthodox liturgy in terms of the readings, but what I'm saying is that the way that the liturgy interprets the books like the Minor Prophets and Daniel and Ezekiel, that's very important to how the apocalypse will be interpreted, because the apocalypse draws, obviously, heavily on those books. And because the apocalypse is structured the same way the Olivet Discourse is structured. So, I would venture to say that I might, Lord willing, I might feel comfortable really getting into the apocalypse 5 to 10 years from now. We'll see. I might not be alive tomorrow, so who knows? Might not be alive 10 years from now, 5 years, 1 year, a week. Who knows? We don't know. None of us know how long we're going to live. We'll see. How would you respond to those of the Assyrian sect that claim that Nestorius is just misunderstood? I've actually read the debate between Cyril and Nestorius. Read On the Unity of Christ. Read the decrees of the Council of Ephesus. And then the Christology of the later councils flows naturally from that. And Nestorians are ridiculous. He is the God-hated Nestorius. And he wasn't misunderstood. Anyway, every group says this. Oh, it's just misunderstood. We hear this about Origen. Oh, Origen was just misunderstood. No. That's everybody who says that are the people who don't want to listen to the Fifth and the Sixth Council. That's who says that. Orthonat, is it true that there are emeritus clergy after you from OCA and ROCOR? I've never had anybody from OCA or ROCOR after me. Namely for your stances on issue XYZ. No. Has nothing to do with any clergy. Everybody knows that I had an argument with a certain well-known person. But to my knowledge, no, I don't have any dispute with any of those people. But it wouldn't have to do with any of that stuff. If it would have to do probably with the stuff that I say about the foundations funding certain things. That's what it would have to do with. And the only person that was after me was an activist who is not a member of any clergy group. He's an activist who is in a very liberal group, like pro-abortion type stuff. So that's who was after me. Not to my knowledge, any person from the clergy, although I'm sure there are clergy types that don't like me. So no, that is not true. DC Custom 2016, $5. Have you ever visited Patmos? Never been to any biblical land. And by the way, my view on any of those issues is not any different than what Seraphim Rose says, or what Father Staniloy says, or what St. John of Kronstadt says. So, I mean, we preach against National Socialism, and we preach against dysgenics, and we preach against abortion, all of which anybody who has any racial obsession, they affirm. So, no, my theology is flawless in terms of Orthodox profession. I'm not saying I'm flawless. I mean, I have many sins that I have to deal with and, improve upon, repent of, but it doesn't stem from heresies. I can tell you that. My sins are, I'll tell you what my sin is beautiful women. Okay. That's my temptation, is gorgeous women. And I don't have a problem telling you that that's my sin. My sin is not theft. I don't have a problem, or I'm not tempted to steal things. If I see a beautiful woman, my temptation is to have a dirty thought about her. That's my sin. My sin is not the desire to create a schism. My sin is not, I'm not tempted with atheism. I'm not tempted with, thank God, by God's grace, I'm not tempted with any of those. But my sin is sometimes I'm arrogant, and impatient, and I think beautiful women are really hot. Those are my sins. So there you go. Now the whole world knows. Everybody can know. And I could be exposed. You can write a big expose exposing him. But Jesus says, he says in the gospel, in fact, I was just listening to that today. Jesus says that everything hidden will be revealed. So doesn't matter. I mean, all that's going to be revealed anyway, right? But I've always been pretty open about, like my period in my 20s where I slept around a lot. So might as well be open about it. You got me, bro. Exposed. DC Custom 2016, $5. Have you ever visited? Oh, yeah, we did that one. Would I do a video on Patmos? Well, if I went there, I would. We did get a new fancy camera now, so we can do fancy camera work. But no, I've never visited Patmos. Fresh whole milk, $7.99. How would you respond to those of the Assyrian sect? Oh, we already did that. Also, Mary's Grotto in Ephesus. I haven't been to I've been to the UK. That was it. So I've been to Canada, Mexico, and the UK. I've never been to Greece or Rome or Ephesus or any of those places. All right. We are at 2 hours and 30 minutes. All right, so great book. Definitely recommend it. As Ron put in the chat, you can read that book free online. Don't have to pay for that. Thank you guys, everybody. It was a fun night. Got a little wild, but that's how we do things here. We get very animated. We make it entertaining, and you have to be. If you can't talk about philosophical subjects and drone on, people get bored with it. Anyway, so subscribe to Jay's Analysis if you want to hear the rest of this. A mere pittance. We're not ripping people off. $4.95 a month. Pfft, dude, you spend more than that on crappy Starbucks every day. $4.95 a month. Anyway, so you can subscribe, help me out, buy the books, whatever. Have a good night, and I will talk to you soon.